Okay, T-minus 10 seconds. Three, two, one.
Hello. Welcome to the first AI Skunkworks deep dive in AI. I love this collaboration that we're doing together. EAI is an institute of smarty pants people doing research in AI. What AI Skunkworks is a bunch of smarty pants people as well, but they're students learning to do AI. People learn to do AI in AI Skunkworks by doing AI. We build things, we create notebooks, we create YouTube videos, we have a magazine, AI Skunks magazine. So we learn by doing. Part of that learning is learning how to communicate. The next generation of AI researchers here needs to also learn how to present, how to talk. And so this workshop has a couple purposes. First purpose is just to get people a hands-on understanding of some topic in AI. Today's topic is ChatGPT, and to really learn it by doing it. The other is to get people practice with communication, to get the next generation of AI researchers skilled at presenting ideas, which is a critical skill in AI. So thank you, EAI, for that opportunity for the skunks, as we call them, to talk. Today, our skunk presenters are Arjun, Shesh, Tandi, and Rishabh. And next slide. So this is pretty much what I just said. What EAI does is they build stuff. They do AI. What AI Skunks is we learn AI by doing AI. Next slide. So we have rule number 2 in AI Skunkworks and rule number 2 in all of my classes. That is, don't believe a word I say. So you should go right now to ChatGPT, if you don't already have an account, and whenever we say anything, verify it by typing it in. So ChatGPT, you'll find, will work a lot like your grammar checker. You'll type something in, it'll fix something for you maybe, or suggest something, and you either accept it or you don't accept it. But you accept it or don't accept it based on your intelligence, your knowledge of a subject. But it's super, super, super powerful tool. I use it constantly. I say, write a Python script to move all the directories from here to there. And then I try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, I say, ChatGPT, modify my Python script so it does this, 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 and this. Very, very powerful tool. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to Arjun now. So I'll hand it over to the people actually giving the talk, and the first one is Arjun. Oh, Mike, you also need the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as you can see on our slides, like what is ChatGPT, what the buzz is all about. So even the Time magazine's covering it, everyone's buzzing around, everyone's talking about ChatGPT, what it is about, and like this is like that's what we are going to say, like what we are going to tell about is what is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a revolutionary AI chatbot which is developed by OpenAI, currently working on natural language processing models or NLP models, and uses neural networks to provide responses. So this means that ChatGPT doesn't need input from you, like it will give you output like on its own basis. So this is what ChatGPT is about. So I was very curious when I came to know about ChatGPT, like November, December, it started hyping up all around, and I went just onto ChatGPT, I created my account, and I just asked ChatGPT itself what is ChatGPT and how it works. So as you can see on our screens, like on our presentation, like I just asked it and I just asked what can you do for me, and he gave the responses like it's a natural language model and working and answering questions and all they can do for me. So that's what ChatGPT is all about. And then I researched more about it, like how it evolutionized over a period of time. It started on 2018, where they had a large model size, and then they divided into 3 main stages. Like first was ChatGPT 1, which was introduced in 2018 with 117 million parameters onto it, and it performing various natural language processing, thus like text summarization and large language translations. Then came ChatGPT 2, GPT-2 in fact, sorry. And the second version of GPT was in 2019 with a huge amount of 1.5 billion parameters, and it is like the text data and was capable of generating text that was difficult distinguishing between humans and the computer AI. And then on which ChatGPT is based is GPT-3 right now, which is 2020 modules, and it was like 175 billion parameters coming all over the places, and it's like a natural language processing task and translations and the text generation, which ChatGPT now you can use itself. So this was evolutioning over 2018 to 2022, which we are using right now, or 2023 in fact. So it's been a long journey for GPT modules to come up. And then I'll just give a brief about large language models. Like it's like artificial intelligence algorithm which collects the data, a huge amount of textual data all around the globe, as you can see in the diagram. Like you can just search, classify, cluster, and then it generates the response onto it. Like we use text summarization and language generation. So now I hand over my presentation to Shesh, my colleague, and he'll go through the technical stuff.
So thanks Arjun for giving a awesome introduction about the ChatGPT. So I think it's time to delve a bit technical about like how exactly ChatGPT is working. And before I start delving a little bit more technical on, I'll just give a brief about like what ChatGPT is based upon. So as Arjun mentioned already that it's basically nothing but a large language model, and large language model can be of different categories. So it can be of RNN, it can be LSTM, it can be transformers. So ChatGPT is basically based on the transformer neural network, which was introduced by Google Brain in the year 2017. And that's why you see the timeline started from 2018. So there is a research paper called Attention is All You Need, which is a very good paper. I'll recommend to read it. And it's basically the basis or the base of how ChatGPT works. Again, you can see its attention is nothing but identifying that what are the most important part in the input itself and then attend to it. So that's the self-attention all about. Here you can see a little image as well, like how the attention is being given, like animal is associated with it because it is a pronoun which is used for the animal itself. Now, just to start a bit more on it, I'll just give an analogy like how exactly it works. So whenever we do a kind of search, it's basically kind of search. So what do we do when we search? Whenever we do a search, we write a query. So you can see I'm trying to search deep learning related videos on YouTube. So I write a query which is called a deep learning. That's a query, my query. Then once I have all the inputs, you can see all the videos listed there. I'll start searching for the key information. Like first video, giant sea turtle. Is it like relevant to my query? Then second one, MIT 6S191, intro to deep learning. Is it relevant to my query? Yes. The third one, is it relevant to my query? No, it doesn't look like. Then once I have identified the key information and I match that, yeah, this is the key which I should be looking and it's actually matching with my query, then I extract the value, which I called a V. So then I get the final output. So transformer is something based upon this concept of search. Now let's take an example. The goal here is to identify and attend to the most important feature in the input, and the input is he taught the tennis ball to serve, right? So now, again, you remember the search example which I gave, right? So how do we start here? So first of all, because we are working to the towards the natural language processing or NLP model, we have to be very cognizant about the encoding or the position of the words, because these are the things which gives us context. I will not delve into how this is done, but you can assume that some sort of encoding is done which preserve that the notion of the ordering of the inputs. So the first step would be I encode the positional information and then I get a final encoding, because our neural networks are nothing but it's just doing some sort of mathematics, so everything has to be a numbers, right? So we do encoding of those input plus the positional encoding. Once the positional encoding is done, now it comes to the query key and value. You remember the one which we took the search example for. So how do we get a query key and value for a positional encoding? So it's very simple. What we do is basically we multiply 3 weights. If someone knows about neural network, it's all about weight multiplication, matrix multiplication, and all those things. So how do we get that query key and value matrix, I would say, or the feature, I would say, is just that we multiply the linear layers into the positional encoding, and we get the 3 new features or 3 new metrics, which is called the query key and values. Now again, what was the second step when we are doing the search? It's basically now to identify whether my key is matching with the query or not. So how do we do that? It's basically called attention weighting, and we calculate it using the matrix multiplication or the vector multiplication. So how you know that when we try to find like how similar two vectors are, we try to check the cosine similarity, that what is the angle between these two vectors, and if they are so close, they are very similar to each other. So that is called a cosine similarity, and we use the same concept to calculate the attention weighting. So it's very simple. We just dot product the q and k vectors, transpose, and we divide by scaling. Scaling is just to make sure that everything is fitting between 0 and 1 and all those nitty-gritty stuff, but this is how we do. And this is what is called a similarity metric. So once I have the similarity metrics calculated, then it becomes the attention weighting. Now you can see, because I was explaining in terms of vectors, now in neural networks, everything is like metrics. So it's the same thing, matrix multiplication of query with the transport matrix multiplication of the key, and then we get the divided by the scaling, we get the attention weighting. And this is how it will look once we calculate it. So you can see here, once I calculated everything and apply the softmax, softmax is again to apply to squishify everything to a limited boundary. You can see that like the most important words in the input which I should attend to are already highlighted with a dark color. Of course, we don't have to look for the diagonal because it's basically the same vector. He and he are similar, so it's like all red. But other than that, you can see ball, serve, tennis, they all have sort of correlation amongst each other. So this is how the self-attention mechanism work. And again, what was the last step? Once I have my query and the key match, then I extract the final value. So that's the last step. I just multiply the value matrix with the attention weighting, and then I get the final output as like these are the words or these are the inputs which I need to attend to. Again, I understand that this was a very brief intro, so that's why I just wanted to go a recap of it, how we do it. So first step, we do the positional encoding. Second step, we multiply with the linear layer and get 3 features, query, key, and values. We do the matrix multiplication, we do the scaling to get the similarity matrix, we do the softmax to squishify everything to 0 and 1, and then finally we matrix multiply with the value and then get the output. So this is how the self-attention mechanism works, and this is the base of the transformer neural network. Be reminded of that this is just one attention head, and as Arjun has already mentioned, ChatGPT has like 175 billion parameters. So it's not that this is the only layer, it's the combination of all this layer clubbed, and there are so many attention heads combined with each other, and they work parallelly to get all those self-attention identified. And as we already know what the buzz is all about, and Arjun has already spoken, the scope is too large here. You can see that ChatGPT only took 5 days to gain 1 million users as compared to Netflix, which took 3.5 years. So you can imagine the scope and the impact. And also, you can already see that none of the chatbot or other thing has been featured on the timeline. So the impact is very huge, and the use case is also so many. So I'll now hand it over to Tanvi to just briefly tell about the limitations and the use cases. Thank you.
So thank you, Shesh, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the advantages and the limitations. Okay. So I'm going to briefly talk about the advantages and limitations of ChatGPT. As we all know, there are a lot of advantages of ChatGPT, but I have jotted down a few. So the first one is the broad knowledge. So ChatGPT has been trained on massive amount of data, which means that it has knowledge about anything and everything. So which makes ChatGPT answer your questions of any subject and also engage into conversations of any diverse topics. Then the second one is the natural language processing. So ChatGPT has been trained using the natural language processing techniques, which means that it can understand and generate human-like language, which makes the conversations feel more natural, which means that it can understand the nuances of languages such as the idioms and slangs. So if we ask anything, it feels like we are having a very natural conversations. The third one is the availability. As we all know, ChatGPT is available 24/7 to each and all of us. But the huge advantage of this is for the people who are staying in different time zones and people who need the assistance right away. The next one we have scalability. So ChatGPT has the power to acknowledge like large amount of data, so which is useful for businesses and organizations who have to do communication for users and the users who need like assistance right away. Then we have consistency. So ChatGPT is consistent in giving responses. So it's not going to be like it's going to give a different response to me and for him. The time or the day you ask ChatGPT, the response is going to be same, which helps them build the trust and reliability between the users. Then we have versatility, which means that ChatGPT has various topics for which you can ask, be it coding, be it communication, resume building, or anything. Going ahead, now we talk about the limitations. So the first limitation that we have about ChatGPT here is lack of common sense. So ChatGPT has been trained using the statistical patterns and correlations, which means that it lacks the common knowledge of what human possess to have. The second one we have is the difficulty with complex or technical knowledge. So ChatGPT has been trained with certain data. So it does not it understands languages that human want to ask. So it will have a difficulty or it will face difficulty if you want to ask a jargon that is scientifically used in terms of scientists or something. So that is it. The third one is the bias training data. So ChatGPT has been trained using its training data. So at times it can generate responses that are biased with its training data and give responses that are very biased. Going forward, so ChatGPT is an advanced language model that can understand and generate text. So we can use it to create websites, build resumes, write cover letters, and many more. Also, we can even use this to generate code in different programming languages such as Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, etc. So we can even visit ChatGPT to create a dummy data. So for example, now I've given an example for ChatGPT to make me understand a piece of code. So here I have asked ChatGPT, what does a select statement do in a piece of code? So we all know select statement is usually used in SQL. So for me to understand more in depth, I asked him, and that is what ChatGPT gives. Like, he gave the definition, then there's a basic syntax that's coming, and then ChatGPT even explains you each and every sentence, like what a select statement is going to do in that sentence. What is a from, what will from do, what will where, what will condition do. This is very useful for people who come from non-tech backgrounds and want to understand like what the coders are doing. And this can help them even learn the basics, not obviously the depth. Now, the interesting fact, as we all know, many of us are struggling to get a co-op or go for interviews. So we really don't know like what technical questions are going to come ahead for us. So people are from different backgrounds. Somebody wants to go for SQL or somebody wants to go for ML. So we can ask even ChatGPT to ask us question. So I asked him like act as a technical interviewer and ask me 5 questions of SQL, which helps me prepare for my interviews. So that's what 5 questions ChatGPT gives me so that I get prepared for my stuff. Then going ahead, now I'm going to go forward with the use case of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT provides different language models for different purposes. There are 2. So the first one is called as the GPT-3 models, which are trained and generated to understand languages like English. And the second one is the Codex, which is specifically trained to understand codes that we ask. So there are examples. The general examples like we want to learn new things or write shell scripts, Git commands, how to start a business, how to write a resume, or prepare for an interview, as I gave an example. So I'll go ahead and give forward to Rishabh, and then I'll give a live example as well.
Well, thank you. Since my colleague just told you about some generic examples of using ChatGPT, I'll take you through a specific use case of ChatGPT that we can use, and that is use sentiment analysis using ChatGPT. So basically, this presentation, I am going to show what is the use case, what are the challenges, what are the results of the methodology that I used, and what would be the future work of using ChatGPT in the same scenario. So I'll do a little bit of crowd work here. What do you understand when you read the first review? I'm asking you. Yeah. So how would you categorize this review? It was a bad review. And what about the second one? That's a good one. Okay. So when you go through this review, you can contemplate like this is a good review or a bad review based on your own assumptions and own experiences. So basically, what made you understand this? So because first of all, you guys know English. That is where you read and you can contemplate it. Then, well, you have been to a restaurant. Well, ChatGPT hasn't been to a restaurant. Then you have context clues. You can clue like both all the 3 sentences together and make up if this is a good one or a bad one. Then you guys brought it all together. Since you guys are all human sentient beings, you possess all 4 of these qualities, and hence you could categorize a review to be a bad one or a good one. So what exactly is sentimental analysis? Sentimental analysis, also known as opinion mining, is a natural language processing model where it basically analyzes and gives you like the polarity of a sentence. If it's a good one, if it's positive, it's negative, or it's a neutral one. So, well, it does by checking the words, the phrases, and the expression that is used in the text. Well, these things can be like in person or in text, but since we are talking about ChatGPT, we are focusing on text one because it's a text chat AI bot. So, okay, so what are the challenges of doing all this? Well, since we know English, everyone doesn't know all the languages. We're gonna check if ChatGPT knows which languages and which it doesn't. Then there are sarcasms, then there are emojis, Then there are certain jargons that we use for a particular like domain that not everyone knows. So these are the challenges basically that we have while contemplating the polarity of a sentence. Okay, so what I did was, first of all, I asked ChatGPT to give me an example of a review that even it can't get the polarity of. So that is what they gave me. So like the restaurant has a nice ambience, but it doesn't provide me good food. Well, the ambience is nice, but the food is not. It depends on a person for which he is going and which is not. So this is a neutral review which doesn't have a polarity right now. Okay, then my second example for all of my Hindi speaking people, I typed ChatGPT in Hindi so that I wanted to check if it can actually understand what I'm trying to say right now. So this basically means, like, I just gave a random example that Thai Basil serves me the best Thai curry, but the staff is very slow. So basically I tried to check two things together, like first of all if it understands Hindi, and then if it's a neutral review or not. So right now it passed both of them. It could tell me like it actually converted the review in English so that everyone can understand. And then it gave me the analysis of it, and it's a neutral one. So I did a kind of a collab notebook project on it, but I might show you guys that in an I might record a video and show that in an asynchronous talk. But I'll go through the methodology that I used here. So I'll take you back from ChatGPT to the OpenAI, other models. So as Arjun told us about, the ChatGPT is based on GPT-3. So there is a model called DaVinci. So I asked DaVinci to give me like 350 good reviews and 350 bad reviews of restaurants. So it randomly generated those reviews for me. Then I used another model of the natural language processing that is called Auto Tokenizer, which basically takes a sentence and assigns a sentiment to it. And it does based on like sentences, words, and then characters. If I go into the technicalities of it, it'll be a long talk, so I might do that in the asynchronous talk. So basically it just categorizes it in like the sentiment would be good or bad or neutral. So then for all the data science people here, I use the random forest classifier model here. I trained that model with the generated reviews and the sentiment, the targeted values as the sentiment. And I trained the random forest classifier with that data. And then like I downloaded 1,000 real reviews of restaurants that are on the internet and tried to test the random forest classifier with that data. So basically I'll show you the reviews. So this was basically the results of my GPT-3 analysis. It categorized the bad reviews and the good reviews. You can see the count, it is around 1,000 as I said. And so basically it was highly effective in classifying those reviews for me. And there is a potential of it to test it in other domains of, like right now I'm doing it in restaurant analysis, it could be hotel analysis, it could be like a Glassdoor job review analysis, it could be anything. So basically, yes, these were the results. I'm going to take you through the future work that we can do here. Well, other industries, as I said, it could be tested in other industries. Then, right now we have ChatGPT. Well, Meta is coming with Llama. Then there is BART that is coming from Google. Well, we have to check if ChatGPT or Llama or BART, which can perform better in this scenario. Well, the conclusion is this. So, at the end of the day, if I get a real person to do this for me, it is very hard for a real person to actually classify a review in real time. And it might take a lot of resources for that person to do. And if it can't be done by a person, we'll have to hire a team. That again will take a lot of money. So basically, ChatGPT is solving a big problem here and making things faster in real time. So yeah, that's my time, and I'll forward it to Nick to say some words about it.
Well, thank you, Arjun, Shesh, Kanvi, and Rishab. Next slide. So Rishab was mentioning something very important, and that's we're going to do a bunch of what we call asynchronous talks. The point of this talk was just to get a taste of what is ChatGPT. But again, our whole philosophy is you learn by doing. So what I loved about what Rishabh did is he just typed in some Hindi. And it either worked or didn't work, right? And because I could not evaluate that. I have no idea whether it did a good job at dealing with Hindi or not dealing with Hindi, but I'm sure Rishabh can. I can do a good job at telling when I type in, write me an algorithms quiz question, I find that it got it right around 90% of the time. It made mistakes, particularly with the master theorem second case, a lot. But still, 90% error rate on quiz questions is better than most of my students on my quizzes. All the students here are laughing because they know that's true. It's an amazing, amazing, powerful tool. So what we are going to do is we are going to encourage you to use ChatGPT, and we're going to next time have a little tutorial on creating robot art for our next one. But what you can do right now is you can go to ChatGPT and say, write me a statement to create a robot skunk for whatever your favorite art bot is, Dolly, Midjourney, whatever. It will write that statement, you plug it in. It will either do a bad job or it will do a good job. The whole point of this group, the AI Skunks, is to do it. Is to test it, to play with things. So we're also, with these asynchronous talks, we're going to record little videos with tutorials, hands-on, to do things. So I'm in business school right now. I'm getting my MBA, mainly because Northeastern pays for it. But I do a lot of research on companies. So I give it a web link to a 60-page document for financial for a company and say, summarize that for me, ChatGPT. What is their revenue model, ChatGPT? Does a great job at that. It does a really good job at that. It saves me a ton of time. So the main thing about this AI Skunkworks group and all of these talks is learning by doing, playing with it. So we have a bunch of smarty pants students here talking about the theory. I'm here to get you to do it. Do it. You know, go to ChatGPT, type something, have it. I ask my students to try to solve my homework with ChatGPT. See what it can do. Of course, it's up to me to write homework that ChatGPT can't easily do, and that's going to be the dynamic of the coming world, is this challenge of doing that. Next slide, please. So we do have an asynchronous talk already set, and that's using, next slide, ChatGPT to make a little text-based game. So, and again, these are asynchronous talks. So what students are going to do is they're going to give you the code again. Number one is we want you to actually do it. They'll put up the code in a little YouTube video on making a little chat-based game. Hopefully, Rishabh will do a sentiment analysis collab as an asynchronous talk. I'll do asynchronous talks on using in my business school classes to research. We just started a company for a nonprofit company for AI Skunks. I had ChatGPT write all the legal documents for me. And then I sent them to a lawyer just to double check them. But it saved me a ton of money sending him, or her, actually, it's the legal Zoom, so I don't know if it's a him or her, sending the lawyer these documents which are already written. Because ChatGPT wrote the documents, and I changed them a little bit. So you can think of ChatGPT a little like a grammar checker. When I use a grammar checker, it gets it right a lot, but sometimes I don't like its suggestion. So I just reject its suggestion, because as a human being, I know stuff. Next one. So our next talk, because all of the art in this PowerPoint presentation was created with a combination of ChatGPT and these art bots. So we did it. We said, ChatGPT, write us a statement to make, a Ninja Turtle, because we all love Ninja Turtles. And then, so that's what it did. Or skunks, a robot skunk. And it made suggestions, and in the spirit of AI Skunks, we just plugged them into your favorite art bot and see what it did, and see, did we like the result, did we not like the result? And I'll tell you now, the art bots are very different. You type the same statement into Dolly versus Midjourney, you'll get very different statements. So we'll go over that in our next talk. Next one. On my way over here, a student texted me and he said, try this thing called Midjourney, which is an art bot. And this is the power of community. This is what ChatGPT can't do. And this is what this collaboration with EAI and AI Skunks is about. It's about a community. Because if a bunch of people are working together, they can give people suggestions and suggest things and learn together. So what AI Skunks, I'm not worried about ChatGPT taking AI Skunk's job. Because AI Skunks is about a community. It's creating a community of people just to try things and play with things together. And so I would not know about this, but he sent me, hey, check out this Midjourney. It's on Discord. So I opened up Discord on my phone. I literally, on my way over here, created these images. The only way I knew that is one of the people in our community said, hey, check this out. I know you're interested in art. You're always posting your SpongeBob pictures all the time and your Mutant Ninja Turtle pictures all the time. Try out this. And so in the spirit of rule number 2, in the spirit of just trying things, I just went to my phone, opened up Discord, typed it in, and got these things sent to me on my way over here. And so this is what it's about. This is what this AI Skunks is about, is doing it. So we're going to do a bunch of asynchronous talks and send us what you want us to build. We need ChatGPT to write recipes for us. We need ChatGPT to write quizzes for us. I had a live session in my reviews. We just had midterms, where the students were writing quiz questions with ChatGPT in the review sessions, live during the review session. Another thing we want to point out is the AI Skunks EAI collaboration is about getting students also to learn to communicate by giving talks. So this talk may have been a little rough. I'm happy with it. But if you're not happy with it, sorry. I mean, it's free. You got what you paid for, I guess. But, it's a great experience to also learn to communicate. And so we'll have little rough patches here and there. But the point of it is to learn by doing. And part of learning by doing is also learning how to speak in front of a group, in front of a crowd. And again, we just started a nonprofit with AI Skunks, and all these people are students. ChatGPT is going to change your business. It already has changed your business, whether you know it or not. And the great thing about students is if you're a business out there or you're whatever out there and you need a little help with this stuff, well, there's a bunch of nerds. I'm in a room with nerds right now. There's a nerd, there's a nerd, there's a nerd, there's a nerd, right? And students are a great way to help your business, because they're not as expensive as super, 20 years experience AI people. And it's a collaborative thing, because what we say in AI Skunkworks is the degree is nice, but your portfolio will get you the job. The number one predictor of whether you can do something is whether you've done it in the past. So show me your work. If you say, I can help your company ChatGPT, show me your ChatGPT notebooks. If you can do diffusion models, show me your diffusion model notebooks. So that's what we do there. We do a large range of things. So we have around 2,000 students in our group. And we do real-time 3D, we do games, we do causal inference, we do a lot of generative AI, we do model interpretability, we do education, we do computational biology. I did my postdoc at Harvard in computational neurology. So we have a lot of people doing a lot of different stuff. But the main thing is we do it. We just do it, right? We just build stuff, we do stuff, and a lot of times maybe it doesn't work. But so what? If it doesn't work, you almost always learn something through the process of doing it. So thank you to all the skunks who presented. There's supposed to be, when we put this up on YouTube, their LinkedIn profiles in the description. So if you need some help with ChatGPT, reach out to them or any of the other people on our GitHub. But again, our philosophy is learn by doing. Do we have time for questions? Or any questions on ChatGPT? Questions? No questions?
Yeah, actually, you can only create the things with existing knowledge, right? You cannot create anything new, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean by new. So let's scroll up one. So that helped me create those things, and those didn't exist in the world 20 minutes ago. But is this new in any real sense? It can help you do productive work. So for example, I have ChatGPT write me Python scripts all of the time. So because I use a Mac, so I can just run things off the command line. So it helps you create. It's a tool. We could not build skyscrapers. This building is a big building. We could not build this without these massive trucks which pull things up in the air. I wouldn't want to carry a 500-pound, steel beam 20 floors up. You need a tool to do that. ChatGPT is a tool. It's a very powerful tool. But you have your creativity. I don't like writing Python scripts, and I'm a computer scientist. But I don't like writing Python. I like what they do because they can create things for me. I like pictures of SpongeBob. But if I have to spend 20 hours writing code for pictures of SpongeBob, I don't write pictures of SpongeBob. If on my way over here in 3 minutes, I can create pictures of SpongeBob, I do it all the time. I do it so much that I think the students are sick of all of the pictures of SpongeBob that I'm constantly posting on. So that I think the problem is sometimes we may be able to create too much because now it's so easy to create. So it depends on what you mean by new, but it's a tool. And so the tool is one, it's a very powerful tool though, and it's a tool that you should know. And it's not just ChatGPT. Every big company is having their large language model chatbots. I forget what NVIDIA's is like Megatron. I like that name if that's their name. Megatron, is that their name? Anybody know it? But Google has theirs. Everybody will have those. These are tools. What people will do is they'll check the answer not just with ChatGPT, they'll check it with NVIDIA's tool and see, do they agree? Rule number 2 is do they agree? Does it make sense? So this is a tool. And a tool can help you to create, but a tool by itself, like a tractor that doesn't actually do anything, might sort of look pretty to somebody who has an eye for tractors, but it's not really like creating anything. Any other questions?
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned bias as a concern, and I'm curious when you think about large language models specifically, what are, it's pretty easy, unfortunately it doesn't happen enough, it's pretty easy to spot the bias in a facial recognition algorithm used by police agencies.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a large language model, what are some of the ramifications of bias?
Ramifications is you need a diverse, it's literally a statistical argument for diversity in your workforce. So for example, you go right now and type in wedding dresses to Google. You'll get a bunch of white wedding dresses. When I type in Indian wedding dress, Google says that's a, quote, costume. But if I show an Indian wedding dress to an Indian person, they'll instantly recognize that's a wedding dress. The bot doesn't, because the bot only knows what it's been trained by who it's been trained by. So it's not the fault of a Google engineer that they don't know what an Indian wedding dress looks like, or a Ghanaian wedding dress, or any other wedding dress. Just their culture, right? That's all they've been exposed to. So the bot, because that's the data it's been exposed to, and that's what it's been labeled by. So the people typing in, their tweet, look at my wedding dress, and it says, and then there's a picture of a white wedding dress. What the bot learns is that wedding dresses are white. They go type in Indian wedding dress or Ghanaian wedding dress or Somalian wedding dress or whatever in Google right now, or ask ChatGPT about it. You'll see a much more richer, diverse things. So what it means is we need to get a richer, diverse workforce. If everyone in the workforce was some big white guy, who looked like, some Northern European, you're going to have a very limited perspective. And so all the bots know is what they're trained on. And they're trained on by the people who train them. And I don't think, like people intentionally say, exclude these wedding dresses from research. Just their culture doesn't know any better, so they label the data that way. And that's what the bot learns. So just like we humans need feedback. If you go to Google, look, you're scrolling up your Indian wedding dress and search, Google will do something about it. They'll start hiring Indian people who know what an Indian wedding dress looks like and putting those in their data set. So the models need to be further trained. But the bias the models are getting is from the people who train the models. They're just learning what they're trained. It's a big, big deal. But it's an argument for diversity. Because in your workforce, so if you're out there hiring and you're worried about your AI company training bias models, and you don't have a very diverse workforce, you're likely to end up with bias models, not because of the tech, it's because, it's literally a mathematical argument for diversity. Hope that answered the question a little bit.
And I think just to supplement what Nick just mentioned is, like, even if I take an example of ChatGPT, it's not that it's just trained on like the data from the internet. There are 3 layers of training to it just to make sure that we are not getting that much amount of bias. It's true that we cannot completely remove the bias because like what Nick has mentioned, it's all about the data and how we trained on it. But like ChatGPT is 3-layer train. So one is like basic training, the transformer neural network, which I mentioned. And to answer your query as well, the training data which has been taken, it has been taken until 2020. So the historical fact he knows about is until 2020. And after that, it doesn't know any historical fact. But it can use that fact to create new interesting facts which doesn't exist anymore. The second layer of training is like fine tuning of that base training what has been done. So it uses like human feedbacks and more data based on the human feedbacks and labeling is being given to perform fine tuning of that base training. And third layer of training, which is a very interesting one, is like they called it as a reinforcement learning, which is human feedback. So they call it RLHF. So what it does is basically it tells ChatGPT that if you give me a right set of response, and that right set of response is basically again labeled by the trainers which created ChatGPT, that is OpenAI. So it tells ChatGPT that if you give me a right set of answer, if you choose from right set of answer, you will get a reward. And that's how if you know how it is, like if you ask ChatGPT some question, it gives you wrong answer, and if it tells that I apologize for giving you the right answer, so at that moment it's learning new things. Okay, so just to answer, like again, it's not possible to completely remove the bias, but it is possible to make it like lesser bias towards certain degree based on the training which we did. And I think depending on the training what we are doing and what we are providing to these bots, it can very well perform even better. So I think like Arjun also mentioned and Rishabh has also mentioned about Llama, which is the language model by Facebook. I read somewhere that it actually outperformed ChatGPT by 13% because it used some sort of different training methodologies. And that is something interesting, and I think I'm still trying to figure out how it's trained. But to answer, the more we train, the more we use different methodologies, the more we get rid of that bias. I hope that supplements what Nick has told.
Next slide.
Yeah.
You say that they are basically rewarded, right? Based on what the user is. So, how should our user, we are not going to trick strategy, making sure that the wrong answer is the right one?
It depends on your perspective. Like if you deliberately want ChatGPT to learn different things, then you can. But that's not the purpose.
So, yeah, so at what extent of doing that we create the performance of strategy?
I think that's an interesting question, and there is no right and wrong. It just depends on, like I gave an example of Llama. It uses a different technique and it performs ChatGPT in certain tasks by 13%.
Reinforcement learning is that, right? It will be rewarded time and
But the reward function and all the things is again being decided by the trainer itself. So it depends on you how you want to train it and what degree of reward you want to give it.
So that means you need to hire people to train it. We would love, by the way, to do AI Deep Dive talk on bias and how we detect bias. But the way we would do that talk is we'd do hands-on. We'd show how to detect bias. But there's going to be different kinds of things. For example, when I use ChatGPT to create algorithms midterms, it gets the master theorem wrong. And that's unequivocally wrong. It gets some things wrong about maybe 10% of the time. But other things like writing the documents, my article incorporations for the nonprofit, that's sort of a subjective thing. So it's hard to really get that wrong. So it's just a tool. So you're going to have to always use your intelligence to evaluate rule number 2. Do we believe this? Does it make sense? And the other thing is sometimes we just don't have a world perspective to even understand that we got something wrong because it's never entered us. And this, again, an argument for a lot of different eyeballs in a community looking at something, because I may say, okay, this is biased this way, but somebody else has a different perspective.
We have a couple questions from online.
Uh-huh.
One person says, so ChatGPT said it doesn't get into data until 2021. Why not until the latest data?
So it takes a lot of time and money to train these models. So I can't necessarily train the model because it may take millions of dollars of computing power to train a model. But you can always further train a model. There's companies like Hugging Face that allow you to download models and further train them. But sometimes people don't allow you to do that because it literally took millions of dollars in computing costs to train the models. And so not everybody invests $2 million in just computing time and then gives away that model. But you can always further train models. But these models take a lot of computing power and a lot of training to train. Some of them are public, which you can further train on different data sets and get different behavior. Others you can't because they're proprietary.
And how can we think about fair data sets for these models that respect copyright and the works of artists? Or are you moving to open data frameworks without copyright and wellness?
So this is probably a harder question than ChatGPT. So let's go back up to this one. So who has copyright to that? Is it SpongeBob? Or is it Discord, the server that credited? Or is it me who literally typed in a prompt to do it? So I don't have the answers to these questions. But the fact that we can create quote unquote novel works so easily is going to be a difficult copyright question. I do like the way sort of Google or YouTube approaches copyright, because they allow people to, the original creator of something, to make it accessible. And then they, for example, let's say I put up some SpongeBob pictures in a book. SpongeBob, it would detect that SpongeBob is in there, and it would give the creators of SpongeBob some royalties on that, assuming they allow that automatically. So that's why I think it's going to go, because there's no way to really control the stuff. The genie is out of the bottle. But I think the smartest thing to do is we can definitely detect SpongeBob is in this picture. Sort of. Well, some people. So that's actually Gary the Snout. But if we can do that, I think the fairest thing to do would be to detect that. Then if this thing makes money, then the creators of SpongeBob get some royalties from that automatically, without really worrying about, without me figuring out who owns SpongeBob, how do I give them money, etc. Whenever there's a barrier to entry, things won't happen. So I think what will happen with copyright is there'll be a way to register sort of the original conceptual idea, and then somebody posts this, and automatically the SpongeBob creators get something, assuming that thing makes some money.
Any final questions or comments from
Yes, one more on that. How do you feel about the upcoming AI climate with businesses? Do you think we can maintain an equal ecosystem, or will we see emerging titans take over? Do you set bigger entities have an obligation to endorse and distribute it to smaller projects?
So I think there's a very long tail in AI with business. So I think there's a role for the Googles, because these language models cost millions of dollars just to run the computing power. But they've made them available, and you could create a business making art books, you could help this write recipes, you could do that stuff, and they seem to want to do that. So I think this will be applied to everyone. That is, the big companies will do what they do well, which is hire very expensive AI researchers in institutes like EAI and spend millions of dollars in computing time. But literally, ChatGPT is free. And you can go there right now and start a business right now with ChatGPT 2 minutes after this talk. And this is sort of the long tail of business. And I definitely think that's the AI. It used to be AI, literally 10 years ago, was only the Googles. Now, if you're just like a little food truck, you should be using AI. And you can now.
So I think the ecosystem is not going to be the same, because I think with these kind of tools emerging, definitely it's going to disrupt the market. And I think with the advent of this ChatGPT, I read somewhere that one of the content creating company fired their 35% of the workforce. So you can just imagine the how the future ecosystem is going to look like.
So next picture. So the ecosystem is going to be different. It's already different. So if you need people to help you with that, we have a whole group of students here to help you with that. And so we have our email here, so reach out if you want another talk on some specific aspect of using ChatGPT or just some help. Thank you.